What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 122 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got about a 36-minute episode, but before we get into that, if you can, check out my Discord. I'll have a link in the description below. Right now I'm doing a poll on what my next ship build is going to be, and if you'd like to be a part of that, be sure to join the Discord and you'll see the tab next ship build. And I have a poll generated based off of my top requests in Minecraft. So definitely check that out. I'm going to have this poll going for as long as the Enterprise D tutorial is running. But the day the last episode comes out, I'm going to be stopping that poll. Now, once you go on Discord, if you see that there's not a ship on there that you'd like to see, there's an option for you there as well. Be sure to click on build suggestions, and in there you can post your comment on what ship or build you'd like to see me do, so this way people can upvote it. I'm going to be doing this going forward indefinitely. Anybody that's making a suggestion on the YouTube channel, I'm going to be referring them to Discord, just so I can keep all that in one area so people can better upvote those as they see them. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into today's episode. We've got kind of a long one, 36 minutes, and we're going to be working on 10 forward. We're actually going to be picking up on the area that we left off when we started our corridors, or two walkways for the left and right side to get into 10 forward. Now, as you can see, I've got a top-down screenshot of 10 forward that was actually fantastic to come across. This will be a little bit easier to help us build this thing out. Now, you might notice that based off that picture, and I know actually I really noticed this myself, that 10 forward does not look nearly as big as it did in Next Generation. For some reason the room actually looked a lot bigger, and I don't know, but it's just, I guess this is kind of one of those things, because like when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I guess 10 forward wasn't really that big to begin with. So I mean, I think it's still vital that we need to make sure that we include this room in the ship. This was such a vital point of the show. It was on so many episodes of Next Generation, and I think it was always very important to have Guinan's bar included on the build. I think we'd be doing a disservice if we did not include 10 forward. But this is definitely one of the fun things that we're going to be doing on the Enterprise D, is just fleshing out some of these rooms that were on the show. Whether it was a recurring room like 10 forward, whether it's, the holodeck, or the captain's ready room, or the Anbo Jiu-Jitsu ring that was featured on the episode with Riker when he had that match with his dad in the ring. I think that's going to be a lot of the real fun with this build, fleshing out some of that stuff, because that's something that I really was thinking about when I was working on this ship, that I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to include all the stuff that was in the show, because this is just stuff that you don't see other people do. I had looked at a lot of other 3D tours that people have done the Enterprise D. I really didn't find a lot, or I'll be honest, I really didn't look to see what people had done interior-wise for the Enterprise Ds from Minecraft. I just kind of did what I wanted, and didn't really look to see if anybody had done this stuff. I mean, if they have, hey, I mean, kudos to you. But in the few searches that I have done just to get ideas on the Enterprise D, I haven't really seen anybody do anything like this. So I think it'll be pretty cool to be able to include some of this stuff in the build, because it's going to help us flesh out the Enterprise D. Because one of the advantages that we have with Star Trek The Next Generation, that I think it's got an advantage over every single Star Trek show that's been out, in the regard that they've had the most content. They've had the most seasons. Maybe not so much the movies, but when you combine their the show's seasons with the movies, they've had the most out of any other cast in Star Trek. Um, so with that reason, we can actually flesh out quite a bit of this thing because there's just so much content to pull off of, you know. Um, and what that's forced me to do is watch the show and rewatch Star Trek Generations that featured the Galaxy class Enterprise. And it's actually been a lot of fun. My girlfriend, she just got at the point where we go to bed at usually like around 10:30, and she's like, Star Trek? I'm like, yep. And that's just kind of what happens now. Like I've just made it kind of a nightly routine where I'll just pick an episode of TNG, and it's kind of funny because I actually don't even watch them in order. I just go through and I pick an episode that I want to watch. That might have something to do with just watching Star Trek: The Next Generation on cable when I was a kid growing up, when it was syndicated after the show ended. That could have been a reason. But yeah, I haven't really watched the show in order, and but it's been a blast because it's given me some stuff to go off of. Now I do want to get into what we got going on here a little bit. You can see I'm adjusting our windows here. We had already done this for another area of the ship. I believe it was either on the left or right side. But I want the windows to be going up at an angle, so we're doing a single row, going up and forward with the cut line, and then doing another row. And just to give them something that has a little bit more shape, because with this picture here, the window kind of just slopes down. So it almost gives me the impression that maybe 10 forward was in the very, very front of the saucer. And if that's the case, I mean, that's fine. But the reason why I ended up putting the ship or this room in the area of the ship that I decided on is because this deck is ultimately going to be the entertainment deck. And in order for 10 forward to be in the front, very front of the saucer, I would have had to have put it on the medical deck, because that's what's going to encompass that area. Because the way I have my saucer divided up right now, it's entertainment deck, crew deck, and then medical slash science deck. Those are the main three decks. Now we've got a couple of other decks on the saucer, which I've talked about in the past. We won't go into that, but that's really the main reason why I just kind of made that decision here. That I think I can get away with it if it's not in the very front of the ship. I mean, it's really not a big deal because I mean, at the end of the day, I've said this all the time that these are made up ships. You can get away with whatever you want. Um, I I haven't come across a Star Trek super fan yet, but I'm sure I will one day. But I mean, that's the reason why I'm making this decision that you can ultimately do whatever you want in these things. I think it's fair game. I think the main thing here is just to have fun and do what you think looks the coolest. I have people all the time where they'll send me either a suggestion on something to incorporate into my ship, or they'll post screenshots in the Discord of variations or changes that they've made. And I think that's awesome because this is one of the things that I say all the time when I'm doing this build, that make it your own. Do what you think looks the best, because at the end of the day, everything that I'm doing here is just more of a reference that, hey, this is what you could do, but not necessarily what you have to do. Just to give you an idea to go off of. At the end of the day, do whatever you want. If you want to make a 10 forward in the very front of the saucer, I'm at least going to give you an idea of how you can do it, or at least build the room out. But I think it'll work out. I'm fairly happy with my ship as a whole so far. Um, but man, like I have a little bit of work to do on this thing. I'm getting pretty close. I say like most of the work is behind me at this point. Really, it's just I've been taking a short break from working on the ship right now, just to kind of recharge a little bit. And then when I come back, I'm going to flesh out the crew deck, and then I have to do the medical science deck, and then I have to flush out the area that's in the lower back end of the lower hull directly behind engineering. And then after that, the only thing I have to do is the registration, and then this thing is done. And then we'll be right into the next build. And like, don't get me wrong, I've thought about skipping through some of this stuff, which I don't think I'm ultimately going to do. I think all the rooms and everything that I've built out, I'm going to show all this stuff. Now, some of like the very, very minor stuff, I have taken a little bit of that out as I've gone through episode to episode. I haven't been as concerned as showing every single tiny little thing on here. Um, if it's something that's so minute that if you just see it, you can correct it yourself. Um, I think that's something that I might end up doing a little bit more going forward. If I don't show it, then at least talking about it. So this way you guys can make those corrections yourself as well if you want to have something that's very close to what I have. Um, but there's still, touching on that, there's going to be changes to my tutorials going forward is kind of what I'm wanting to get at. I want to do them a little bit more efficiently than the way I currently have them set up. I think where I'm at now has worked out pretty good because the last episode that we did was a great example of that when we had the refresher on the inner ring corridors. Even though the inner rings were 3 decks high, I only built 1 deck and just showed you guys the placement points for deck 2 and 3 and didn't include that because there was really no need to, because we literally just be doing the same thing that we did for that entire episode. So with that being said, I think that on these builds going forward, you're going to see a lot less of that repetitious stuff. I think especially the biggest change will be in the beginning parts of our build. I'm probably not going to build out the circles, the initial circles and ovals live. I'll probably go over the patterns and what you guys need to do, but from there I'll just build it and then skip to the next part, or then at least the next step. And that's just going to be to help lower time down on some of these episodes, because I'm still somewhat new to doing these. This is really only, out of my large builds, this is really only the 4th tutorial I've done. If you take into account the Disco Era Enterprise, the Cerritos, and then the Revengeance that I did on Starship Evo, and then now the Enterprise D. If you count the 2 mock tutorials that I did of the Enterprise D and the Enterprise A, that'd bring us up to 6. But I mean, still, it's not really that many. So, as we go, the channel is going to continuously evolve, and at least the way the process that I do this, because I try to learn from my mistakes, and I'll be the first one to admit that I am not perfect when it comes to building on Minecraft, let alone doing these tutorials. It's going to be a consistent trial and error process. So, I mean, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I think you could do this better, or I think, you could try this and that might work out better, I'm not really opposed to it at all. In fact, I encourage it. As long as people go about it and they're nice and they're not mean or anything like that, I'm actually all for it, because that's really one of the ways that I grow with this channel, is getting that feedback from the community, because I can only see so much sometimes. Like, for example, with the saucer, the way I used to do the process for the initial ring for the saucer to the inner rings, I realized over a period of time that the way that I showed it on the channel wasn't necessarily the best way to do it, because I tried to save people time and not showing them how to count out their centers, and I just gave them their starting points. But I didn't take into consideration that, hey, not everybody is probably going to have the same exact ring dimension that you're going to have, and this could cause issues, So that's why I put out a tutorial on pixel rings on Minecraft, just so I can go over that. And going forward now, the process in which that I did those rings on that tutorial, that's how I'm going to do them going forward. So it is something that, I'm trying to learn and get better at this thing as we go, but it's just going to be a process, But we're getting a little bit of work done here today. We're looking pretty good so far. We've got our bar put in place, and right now we're just putting our flooring. I think the one thing that we're not going to have here that and I'm sure you've probably noticed it, is this the step down right here, how it goes up. Now, if we had colored half slabs, this wouldn't be a problem. And of course, if those of you that have been on my channel, you know I'm going to talk about the colored half slabs. This is the thing I've been waiting for them to add in Minecraft for like 10,000 years. It doesn't look like they're going to add it anytime soon, but I mean, who knows? Maybe if I keep talking about it, maybe it'll get other people excited to talk about it. Maybe one day it'll happen. But because we don't have those colored half slabs, there's nothing that we can really do to add them. So that's why I'm just flattening it out right there and just calling it a day. I'm not going to lie, what I am getting ready to do um, is I'm thinking about starting maybe at least a single build on my computer for Minecraft. Because I think I talked about this once or twice that, my channel is pretty much that I'm not doing any mods or anything like that. I'm building this on the Xbox beta, and I'm doing this for a reason so that anybody can come through and they can build the same thing that I'm building. Yeah, I do have a couple of texture packs here and there. I only have two in there. I think it's the grid pixel circle generator and there's something else. If you want the list of the packs that I have, you have to go on the Cerritos episode of the grid pixel pack, and it shows you which ones that you need to add. But my point is that I try to build this thing out without using any mods because I want everybody to be able to have access to doing this if they want to be able to build it exactly. Now, with that being said, I had recently, because I just got a new computer a couple of months ago, a brand new gaming computer, and I downloaded Minecraft on the PC and I got the beta, so I have the RTX version of Minecraft, the one with the super enhanced graphics. I haven't talked about this topic in a long time, but those of you that have been on the channel know that I actually stopped playing Minecraft at one point for about a year. Um, after they had This was after they announced the super duper texture pack, and this was right after, they just kind of told the community to kick rocks and didn't even bother saying that the super duper texture pack wasn't coming out. I took a nice little break from Minecraft after that because I was uh, honestly a little bit salty that they did that, to the community. But, that always kind of stood in my mind that, man, I wish that they would have added something like that so I could play it. So I think I might end up doing something with it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do because I really want to keep my builds going on Minecraft, but I've been getting an increase of people asking me, and this was honestly the other reason that made me think about it, was that I've had some people off and on pretty consistently since I've had my YouTube channel ask me, hey, I'd really like to download your map. And especially with the beta, there's just no way for me to share it. There's no way for me to share it as far from what I'm aware of. And even if just from the Xbox edition, I know that there's a way to do it, but it's fairly difficult from what I understand with it. So I may eventually start to slowly transition that into PC. I don't know. Now, if that does end up happening, I'm going to keep the same ideals that I have right now. That for the most part, unless it's a special build, that I'm not going to be using any mods because I really want to stand by that. But I mean, if I do end up going over to PC as far as building on Minecraft, and this would be for the sole purpose of being able to share my builds with a community where you guys can actually download them. I may do a build here and there that does have mods because they have the Star Trek mods and just a bunch of cool different things that you can get that you can't get on the console versions. And I figure, I've got this really nice gaming computer. I might as well take advantage of it. And I think people would appreciate being able to experience the RTX version of Minecraft and getting into all that. I know I would, but I mean, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I haven't done anything yet with it. I really just installed it on my computer a couple of weeks ago, and I just actually played with it just a little bit yesterday, but I haven't made anything on there. So I really don't know what I'm going to do with it at this point. I just want to talk about it because it's something that I'm thinking about doing. But I also, just want to reassure everybody and let them know that, hey, even if I do that, the way that I'm building my ships now, it's not going anywhere. I'm not going to lie. I think the hardest thing I'd have going over to it, I think I'd be able to do it eventually, but it's not easy to walk away from a map that you've been working on for over 10 years. Because that's what I'm on right now. I've got and no joke, I'm never losing this save. I've got 100 backups of this save world. Like I'm not losing it, you know. Um, but I mean, at the same time, like it's 10 years worth of work. Uh, that's a lot of time, to put into a single map, and that's a big reason why I haven't also gone over to computer, even having a new gaming computer. But I don't know. It may not necessarily be a bad idea to start fresh and load up a world that's got completely flat terrain, or load up a space world or something like that, different than what I have right now. Just kind of transition into the next chapter of the channel. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm still thinking about it. Oh, excuse me. I just had to sneeze. And I'm glad I was able to spare you guys of that, because I have this new headset that I've been using, and it has a mute button that I can press on it, so I could spare you guys of that without having to go back and try to figure out how to edit it out of my videos. Because I'll be honest, I'm not an expert when it comes to making these videos, or at least editing them. I probably do it the most primitive way that it's possible to do it. But, I mean, it gets it done and it looks pretty good. I've actually run through like 3 or 4 different headsets. I've pretty much have come to the conclusion, as far as doing these videos, that having a wired headset is the best thing I could possibly do, because I've gone through 3 wireless versions of Logitech headsets that just stopped working, which I was actually surprised with, because Logitech usually makes some pretty good stuff, but within the last, actually not, within the last couple of years, even their keyboards and mouses, I feel like every 3 years I'm buying a new keyboard and mouse. But no, I even went through, after I had the problems with the Logitech headset, I bought one by MPOW, and I ended up getting rid of that too, because I had nothing but problems with it. And the one that I have now, it's actually, believe it or not, it was a headset that I had for work. I think it's, the name of the company is VoiceJoy. But it's a call center headset. Because I work in medical supplies, and they've had us working at home now for like 2 years, which has been awesome. But long story short, like I had an extra headset, and my girlfriend was like, "Well, you should just use one of the work ones," and I have, and it's actually been working out fantastic. But I'm pretty sure anybody else that wants to try it, yeah, it's called VoiceJoy, and you can get them on Amazon. I think they're like $30 or something like that. But the quality of them, they're not bad. It's nice. It's not as nice as the Logitech wireless one that I had, but I'm not gonna lie, it's more comfortable, and it works a lot better. So you can see in today's episode, I've really just been doing a lot of filler talk, because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the stuff that we've been doing here is pretty much self-explanatory. Um, we've pretty much focused on closing in 10 forward. Um, Now we're kind of towards the middle where the mall is. You can see I'm cutting out these extra doorways. We're going to be getting rid of those, because I wasn't really plotting out where my floor plan was going to be, but where I had these doors. And I think I did this on another episode not too long ago. And now I'm just continuing that mistake, because I just honestly didn't take the time to plan it out. But these doorways where I have them, it's going to cause a huge problem, because they're going to be directly where our stalls for the shops are going to go. So that's why we can't use these doorways that I just added in. And we're going to have to use the doorways that we have that's closest to the windows, where we have the blue walkway. I'm not going to lie, I totally keep forgetting about the mall. That's the other area that I actually have to finish on the ship. But that's going to be another one where, like, I'm not going to build all of it out live. I think the way I'm going to do that is because there's 2 decks of the mall, and it's got 4 sections on each deck. I think what I'm going to end up doing with that when I go back to the mall and finish that up is I'm going to do 1 section, because it's going to be the same thing in each one, basically. Um, and I've got an idea on what I want to do, but I'm still not set on anything yet. Like I said, as we go through the tutorial series, don't be surprised if the last couple of things that we do is the mall and the lower part of engineering, because those are the 2 areas that I'm honestly just not sure exactly what I want to do. I've been trying to go through on Minecraft and looking at other builds that people have done, just of like super malls and stuff like that, just like to give me an idea, but I haven't really seen anything that I can really incorporate into the build. Oh, another thing I do want to talk about, if you're not on the Discord, you may want to join, especially if you're looking forward to the Enterprise A tutorial that I have coming up, inspired by the Enterprise from Star Trek Beyond, but refitted to look more like Enterprise A should. If you join the Discord, right now I have a poll going, well, not a poll, but I have screenshots up of different concept art. Um, and I just posted more pictures of it. I've got the top-down view, and definitely check that out. It looks pretty cool. So I want to briefly get back in what I got going on here. So I stand corrected. So we are on the front area of the ship. We're right behind the 10 forward. These aren't walkways I was adding in. I completely forgot that we were adding these into today's episode. We're actually adding in additional turbo lifts so that we can get to the different levels of the decks of the ship. And this is not the only area that we're going to be doing this. We're doing this for the front portion of our corridors. We're going to be doing this also for the left and right portions of the corridors as well. Because my thought process behind it is that I wanted to make it a little bit easier to maneuver around my ship without having to jog like a mile back to the only turbo lift that can get you deck to deck. That just didn't make sense to me, and it made more sense to have it to where it made more sense to have multiple turbo lifts. So that's what we're doing right now. We're adding in an extra area for our turbo lifts, just so we can get around the ship, but make life just a little bit easier, because yeah, I mean, this thing has turned into a monster to get around in, and I really wanted to make that a little bit easier, Now, I will say that it's pretty uncommon for me to add in more turbo lifts at this point in the build. Even like the extra ring of corridors that we added in. This is stuff that I usually have done like right off rip. But the Enterprise D it's turned into a different animal when it's come to building this thing. And I just realized as I was going that I required more of these things to really make it work and to get around my ship in a more efficient way. Um, but I mean, it's been a learning experience. Going forward, if I ever did another ship this big again, all this stuff that we added on, like with these extra turbo lifts and the extra layer of corridors, this is stuff that we do in the beginning. This way we can focus on the rooms later, rather than kind of doing it backwards. The only saving grace that I had with this is that a lot of these areas, luckily, weren't filled in all the way where I can come in and add this stuff in and it basically wasn't a problem. Now you can see here with our turbo lifts, I kind of actually made a mistake. Well, I didn't make a mistake. I was trying to go off of the pattern that we had to work with off that straightaway corridor. And I had it as a 3x2, but really what I need is a 3x3. And the reason it needs to be a 3x3 is so that all of our turbo lifts on the ship match. Um, that's something I'm a stickler for with my builds. So, I mean, if that's something that you don't feel that you necessarily need to do, you don't have to do it. You can have it be a 3x2, and I don't think anybody would really bat an eye at it. Just for me, anyway, as a builder, that's just something that kind of sticks out, and the ADD is going to kick in, and the OCD, making me, it's basically going to bug me until I get it fixed. And no matter what I go to, it's going to mess with me, and so it's just better off for me as a builder just, to fix it right now, because otherwise I'll have problems later on with it. But I mean, I do think that that is something that's important to have. I think that once you get a certain um, pattern established on your ships and you commit to doing that, I think it's fairly important to have that stay consistent throughout the build, you know, because you really don't want to see variations of that if it's supposed to be a certain way. Like in this case, if our turbo lifts are supposed to be 3x3, it should be 3x3 going through the whole ship unless you absolutely can't do it in an area, you know. But like if you start to veer away from that, this is where your ship can start to fall apart. This is why being consistent is important, because that consistency is something that you see when you see these ships in Star Trek. Um, they carry their patterns room to room. They have a set design, and that's why I think it's not necessarily a bad thing to kind of like have started working on starships, because it's pretty much made me very organized in doing it. It's been a slow process to get here, because I've been doing this for like 10 years now at this point, working on ships in Minecraft. But I mean, it's definitely helped me become a better builder. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It can take time, but if you're patient and you just take it one build at a time and go from there, you will eventually get better if you're able to go back, look at your work, and try to look at what you did wrong, what you could do better, and try to fix that. You will become better as a builder. And don't worry, like if you're going to stay following me on the channel, I'll be there too to help you out as much as I can. I try to show my entire thought process on here because, I mean, I know sometimes some of the stuff that I might do may not necessarily make sense why I'm making that decision. That's why I like to have discussions about it, because I get people that ask me like, "Hey, where's your blueprints?" And it's like, I wish I had that for you, but at the end of the day, there's no blueprints for this stuff. I mean, we're just making this up as we go. So that's why I try to have discussions about this stuff and talk about it, so that you understand my frame of mind and where I'm coming from, so that maybe that some of this stuff rubs off on you and you start thinking this way also. Now, if you really want to, sure, you can find blueprints for the Enterprise. You can find blueprints for the Enterprise D. The problem that you're going to have, and this is why I ultimately started veering away from going off of blueprints to a T, is that when you're looking from a room from a top-down view and you see it, it's not really showing you what's in the room. It just gives you the shape of it. And they'll have a couple of X's and circles like to jot certain areas down, like where a desk would go and things like that. But it doesn't really give you a heck of a lot of detail to go off of. Another thing that you'll notice, because I noticed it looking at these blueprints, is that there's a lot of filler rooms. You see a lot of repeated rooms. Now, I mean, you can do this. I've seen people do it in their builds, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I feel like it's almost like a waste of space at that point. Like, for me as a builder at this point in the game, I find it far more interesting to add in, rooms like the Ambo Jiu-Jitsu ring, or I'm going to hit you one that almost nobody remembers, the racquetball room that was on TNG with Wesley and Picard. This is the stuff that I would rather see on this ship, rather than 50,000 crew quarters or 50,000 lounges that you're going to see if you look at a blueprint. Um, and I mean that's just kind of the way it is. You know, these ships, I mean they're pretty big, but I mean you are going to see a lot of that repetition over and over again. Because I get it, they're trying to make it feel real as much as they can. Um, but at the end of the day, for what we're doing in Minecraft, we don't have to show all of that stuff. You don't have to have 50,000 crew quarters. You don't have to have 50,000 lounges. I'm going to show you guys when we get to the crew deck what you can do to get around that. Because don't get me wrong, we're still going to have some crew quarters. We're just not going to have that many of them. And I'm thinking that's what I'm probably going to do for the crew deck. Because that's one of the reasons why we haven't done it up to this point, is because this is one of my rules, that if I'm not sure what I want to do, I step away from it until I know what I want to do, just so I'm more organized. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'll have a couple of crew quarters. But for the other area on the crew deck, I think what I'll probably end up doing is just having the doorways, and I'll just have the rooms closed. That may seem like a cop-out, but it's really not going to be, because like I said, don't trust me. We'll have rooms for the crew. It's just not going to be as drastic, because I don't feel that it's really going to be necessary for the tutorial to have all that stuff, because once I show you guys how to build out the room, if you really want to, you can go in, you can add that in, and you'll have the tutorial on how to build out the room. It just won't be for that specific area that you're adding in. So you'll just have to modify it to make it work. But yeah, you know, it's been a lot of fun working on this ship, and it's going to be kind of weird when I'm done with the Enterprise D, because I feel like I've been working on this thing for so long. It's been over a year at this point, but it's definitely going to feel good at the same time to work on something new once it is done. I'm really trying my best to get through this as best as I can, without rushing through it, because I don't want to do it a disservice either. It's even like when I did the Cerritos. I almost feel like I didn't rush through the Cerritos, but we got to the point on the Cerritos that we did what we could do on it, because it's just they haven't shown that much of the interior. I was waiting for them to add more on Star Trek Lower Decks, and I was hoping with the last season that they would have added a few more rooms. I think they added one or two. Actually, I don't think they actually did add anything new last season. I think it was just the same stuff from the one before that. But I mean, I kind of did everything that I could do with the Cerritos, you know? But even with the Cerritos, I think I only did like one crew quarter and I called it a day. You won't see that on the Enterprise D. I'm going to have a lot more than that. I'll have a lot more than one, but it's not going to be it's not going to be a huge number. It really won't be. So I made a slight mistake here again on my turbo lift. I didn't go back far enough. I need to bring that back by one more to fix that, to finish that off, to make it a 3x3, but we've unfortunately run out of time today, so I think that's going to wrap us up. We're already at the 38-minute mark, so I'm going to close this one out, and I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. New subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. If you did enjoy this content, hey, help me out. Hit that join button on Discord. I can't thank you enough for that. There's a ton of content that I have on the Discord, polls, concept art of the new Enterprise A that I'm working on, and there's going to be a lot more to come. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you do have any questions, just dropping by, say hey, be sure to drop a comment either on my YouTube channel or Discord. And I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And of course, what did